I think a principal really needs that humility to start with. You do not own the knowledge. You do not own everything at that school from the get-go. You need to have a really strong culture of humility, availability. Consistency is probably the most important thing.
You're listening to Around the School Table, hosted by me, Steve Davis, and proudly powered by Zuno Suite. We'll be bringing together the many voices shaping primary and secondary education across Australia, from principals and teachers to education thought leaders and system innovators. Whether you're in the classroom, the staff room, or the boardroom, this is your podcast to be informed, inspired, and connected. Today on Around the School Table, we're joined by Stephen Crockford, Principal of St Albans Meadows Primary School and a remarkable educator who's just weeks away from retirement after 55 years of service. From starting his career in Broadmeadows in 1968 to leading St Albans Meadows through profound social and educational change, Stephen's devoted his life to lifting expectations and opportunities in Melbourne's northwest. In this conversation, he'll reflect on transforming a struggling school into a thriving community, the power of sport and explicit teaching to build aspiration, and the importance of growing emerging leaders who'll carry the work forward. If you care at all about the long arc of school improvement and the legacy of a principal can leave, this is a story I think you should lean into and have a good listen to. Stephen, thank you for joining me around the school table.
Thank you, Stephen.
It is a real honour to actually have a chance to sit with you just weeks away from retirement. You've worked across 10 schools thereabouts in Melbourne's northwest. St Albans has clearly transformed over the decades. How's that long view of a community's evolution shaped your leadership?
Well, obviously, I've had to grow in the role myself. I think it's very important as a leader when you start in a position, you don't know that much. Be a little bit humble, understand your own limitations. You might have a vision, you might have plans, you have some experience, but you have to live the journey, you have to go through it, and you have to learn to develop yourself as you go. And obviously, to lead an organisation at the school, you have to develop the people within the organisation with a shared vision. So, when I look back, when I started St Albans Meadows back, assistant principal and PE teacher in 1990, I might have thought I knew a lot, but I actually knew very little about the bigger picture. And I think the bigger picture is what will separate many principals from being effective or otherwise. So fortunately, I did have a strong background in education, and I've always, Stephen, regarded myself as a teacher first. And I think when I became a principal, my school, our school, as we refer to it, was basically my classroom. So I was like a teacher with a whole lot of people working with me and for me, just like in a classroom when I was a teacher. I differentiated, I developed people, I looked at the individual skills of people, whether they're children or adults. It's actually a very similar journey. And when you look across now with 80 odd people at school, every one of them, I look at them as an individual and someone who I can work with and develop. So that's a big change in mindset from when I first started. And to be on that journey and to learn that, I think is something that I'm quite happy to share with people.
There's two things that just struck me as you said that. One was having that humility when you begin. And just as a quick aside, now with all your experience, I know you're retiring, but if a new school offered and you went to start, how easy would it be to regain and pull on that cloak of humility to start again, knowing that you've got all this experience?
Oh, look, I think it's the key, to be quite honest. And I have some work with other young principals. I'm trying to help them, or assistant principals, on their journey to becoming principals. And they still need that humility more now than ever. I think we're an educated community more so. Everyone, parents, everybody's more aspirational, more well developed, and schools come under a lot more scrutiny because of that, because we're inviting everybody into our schools and into our community. So I think a principal really needs that humility to start with. You do not own the knowledge. You do not own everything at that school. You are a facilitator, you're a manager, you're a side-by-side person, getting people on board with you with a shared vision. And that passion will, if that will determine the culture of the school, particularly a brand new school from the get-go. You need to have a really strong culture of humility, availability. Consistency is probably the most important thing. Everybody wants to know which leader is going to turn up day in, day out. They can't have a different leader on a different day because of a mood or something happening. And I think that's, if I'm going to offer anything to an emerging leader or a young principal, be consistent.
And the other thing you said earlier that I don't want to lose hold of is remembering that you are a teacher first and foremost. I get the sense to me that that is a form of ballast to keep you square as you move through. And I wonder if the structure of the education system and the hierarchy and the way it's thought of and worked out, whether that puts that under pressure and it can get lost. But I'm guessing you would argue holding on to that thread is going to be an important thing for any principal or leader.
I would agree with that 100%, Stephen. You've summarized it beautifully. Never forget who you are, where you've come from. I'm a teacher. I became a teacher because I had passion for the profession, still do. I haven't lost the passion. I haven't been burned out. I'm actually very lucky. I'm going out with my feet, not with my feet first, but on my feet, and still intact and still enjoying the role and still feeling great about what we do as teachers. Now, I think and I don't mean to be critical, but some young principals become very corporate. We are not corporate. We are educators. We're there to look after the next generation, to make sure that our great country is well represented by good people, and the good people thing is so important. And I don't regard myself as a corporate in any way, shape, or form. I'm a principal who's enjoyed 30 years in the role, who's always been a teacher. And I always, when they put occupation, I never write principal, I write teacher. Okay?
Yeah. That's great. Sorry, that's worth a moment's pause, because I think we can all run away with ourselves and our titles. I want to take you back to 1996 when you became principal there. Students apparently were about 18 months behind. Today, the school's grown from 16 staff to around 80. It's thriving. What were the turning points of that transformation?
Yes, I believe that you start with what people can do and what they're good at, what's enjoyable. Maths and English to a certain extent, obviously that's our end goal, to have outstanding results in that. But to achieve that, I went about it in a different way. I wanted the children to come to school and be happy for a start off. So I looked at, with my sporting background, PE teacher for a while, obviously did a lot of classroom teaching. But I've done just about every job in the classroom. I've been in the trenches, so as to speak. So I know what it's like. And I think children at that stage at our school, we never had a uniform. They pleased themselves whether they come, and it was accepted that they would be 18 months behind. Okay, we had to become aspirational. We had to change that. So I looked at my strengths at that time. It was my sporting background, and to get some excellence into the kids. We never won anything at this school. We were an embarrassment. Okay, so we started coaching kids at lunchtime and before school and after school. And, we got out there and I was doing that myself. I was taking teams and probably symbolic leadership to a certain extent, leading from the front and then getting teachers along with me to do that. And then the children saw that we were interested in them, that we wanted them to come to school and be part of something special. Okay, with sport, you don't need a lot. We didn't have an auditorium or a basketball stadium. We had a playground, and we could get out there and a few balls and things like that, and we could do things that would engage children, and they would see us as human beings too, as different people, not just trying to bang education into them. Education basically becomes a way of life, and from that. 2, 3 years of that, our children, they had a lot of pride in their school. They wanted to represent their school. They wanted to be part of something, and they wanted to train, and they wanted to, you know, win if they could, or learn how to lose gracefully. And from that, we then went into the performing arts area, which was a really interesting thing.
That,
We went
that's
more into
that's not a jump that I was anticipating.
yeah. So well, performing arts was the next thing. We can all sing, dance, we'll do something. We can act. We can once again building up children's self-confidence and acceptance. So we never had a concert at this school, and the staff, when I first started the school, said you'll never get anyone to come. No one nobody wants to do a concert in St. Albans in the western suburbs with low socio-economic. Well, I said, well, look, I got a group of teachers together, and we did. And we started off something that now is outstanding. We now have our own band, our choir, our dance group. We perform at the State School Spectacular. Um, we've been to shopping centres singing. We've done everything, and we are not just St. Albans anymore. We are St. Albans.
Do you remember what the early performing arts centerpieces were? I'm imagining it's not David Williamson's The Removalist or anything grotesque like that. What sort of things did you do?
Well, it was very basic to start with, Steve. We had a concert, okay, each grade level. When I first started, we only had 9 grades. So every grade put on an act, and it was up to each teacher to work up an act. And I didn't have a performing arts teacher at that time, but I had some teachers that were keen, were interested, and we started with that. And everybody did a little act, and then I went out and I chased the best performing arts teacher I could find. I was actually headhunting people, and I've still got that same performing arts teacher with me today. And she is absolutely incredible. And she does 2 concerts a year now. We still do choir, band, and dance. We do state school spectacular. We're doing a concert today as part of a transition for our prep kids for next year. So there's a little concert already happening, and there'll be another one at the end of the year with the Christmas sing-alongs and things like that. So it's our children. They don't know any differently. Actually, they get it before they even start here. That performing and singing and dancing and being happy is a good thing, and they get connected. And connection is, as you would know, connection is everything. You get children connected to school. They want to come every day. They want to participate, and excellence comes out of that.
And my intuition is that both sport and performing arts are disciplines where there is great connection. It's hard to maintain your high pedigree when you're sweating with them as a teacher, or you're having to demonstrate how to sing something. I think there's a sense of camaraderie with academic prowess not getting in the way.
100%, 100%. It's a neutralizer to a certain extent, as you're saying, and once again, you're with them.
Yes.
It's once again, it's a side by side, and it's a great modeling. It's it's great modeling for children to see their teachers doing things with them.
Yeah.
And you know, you can't put a price on
No.
that. And you can, like I said, you can be as corporate as you like. You can uh, get ahead of yourself and think you're something more than what you are. We are teachers in a school with children doing great things. And I think you start with that in mind, you will get really, really good results and you'll get people coming along with you for that journey.
Talking of things said, you have once said that you start with what students like to do
Yeah.
and then backfill. I think that's partly what we've just been talking about, but how else does this approach look in practice?
Well, basically, once again, it's part of the culture. And if I want to start, I have to go back a little bit. So every child that comes to our school, before they are enrolled, I have a half hour plus meeting with their parents and do a tour and have a good talk to everybody. Once again, I connect with parents before they even become part of the school. Then we obviously we go out into the kinders and we have a look in preschools and we look at our children and we know them before they even get here. So from that point of view, when I'm talking to the parents, I will say to them, "What does your child like? What is your child good at? What's their little passion?" And every child has something going on in their little head, and I'd say, "Well, thanks for that." And then look, I'll keep that in mind. My child loves sport. My child loves to sing. My child loves to draw. My child likes to cook. Okay, so I keep all those in my memory, in my head, and also take notes, and then we share that with our staff. And then we try and identify what a child might be really passionate about before they even get here. And then when they are here, then it's incumbent upon us to make sure our programs are extensive enough so that every child is catered for. We have chess clubs. We have Lego clubs at lunchtime. We have cooking clubs. We have a writing club, for God's sake. You know, if children write, they love writing.
Wow.
Uh, so we do lots of really, really good things, but it's education. It's what it is. That's what we do.
It's almost like those kids doing the writing groups will be the remnant population that maintains that discipline instead of passing it all off to AI.
Oh, God forbid. No, and that's right. And our writing at this school is really, really good. Our
Right.
children are doing great things.
Now, the school is in a tough, low socio-economic area. So what role did community building and out-of-school programs play in lifting student engagement and outcomes?
Well, it's really interesting. Back in the day when I was building the culture in the school, I got a few parents on board, and we become an Auskick school.
Okay.
So we actually used to have like 100 kids here on the weekends doing Auskick and after school. So that was one way of getting parents into the community. We had one parent who was an ex-dancer. She started up a dance group after school. Um, and then more recently, I suppose if we jump forward, now I actually have a fully equipped gymnasium at the school for parents to work out free. It's an excellent facility. So it's
Wow.
open from 8 in the morning till 5, Monday to Friday. Parents come in, get to know each other, work out. They're modeling fitness and health and activity with their children, and it's part of our community. And once again, it's a little bit different to what most primary schools will be doing, but it works and it's an amazing facility. And like I said, that gets parents in. And I'm not trying to get them to come in and listen to kids read. I don't, I'm not into that. I'm sorry. I have experts that do that. I have professionals that are really, really good at that. We like children to read for enjoyment. We like them to be with their parents for enjoyment. We don't want their parents to be their teachers. They are their parents and do really fun things with them, nice things with them, whether it be fitness, whether it be, with our kitchen garden program too, whether it be cooking. And we have an amazing kitchen garden, activity based program going on. So all of these things one hand washes the other to a certain extent.
I hope they get T-shirts. The parents who sweat together connect together.
Well, I might be able to market that when I've got 3 weeks to go. We'd have to get going pretty quickly on that one, Steve.
Good morning.
Selamat pagi.
Kalimera.
Buongiorno.
Magandang
좋은
umaga.
아침이에요.
Want to make sure every parent feels connected and informed, no matter what language they speak? Communication just got easier. With Zuno's multi-language feature, you can now connect with parents in over 130 languages, automatically translated, instantly understood, whether it's reminders, updates, or celebrations. Families receive your message in their preferred language, with no extra steps from you, no confusion, just clear communication. Every time. Try it today to build stronger school-to-home partnerships, inclusive, effortless, and effective.
Now, back in the early 2000s, you built a business case to fund laptops for grades 5 and 6. You didn't want to rely on the Victorian government's Ultranet. What drove, I mean, you can talk about it openly now, what drove that decision and what did you learn from being ahead of the tech curve?
Well, I learned that I don't know much about tech, but I once again I had a staff member, a young man who I brought into the school, and that was his passion. And he still is a great young man. He's no longer in teaching. We did such a good job with him that Apple stole him, and he now works full time for Apple. Has for about 10 years. But when Simon came into our school, he said, "Steve, the way forward, Apple computers, MacBooks and things like that." He said, "It'd be great if we could get every child in grade 6 to have their own MacBook." And I said, "Well, we're in a low socio-economic area. How are we going to do this?" I said, "What are you going to do with it? Is it going to replace pen and paper? Where does it fit within the curriculum? What's the educational benefits of it for a start off?" And basically right back then, even though we were doing every child one-to-one, as we called it, program, we never lost sight of the pen and paper. We always try to keep the balance, which is something they're trying to pull back in now. But we were actually talking about that right at inception point of this program. And it was when Simon came to me and I said, "Well, what are we going to do? How do we get every child, a laptop?" And I thought about it, and I thought, well, there's 200 school days in a year. If we market this and lease out to parents for $1 a day, so you have 200 school days, costs them $200 a year, so it's $1 a day, and we can go through a company and we will lease these laptops, not buy them because we couldn't afford to buy them. They were too expensive, but we could do it through the lease. And then that was the business model of it. And that's where it basically started. And Simon then was doing incredible things with these children. And we had educators from all over Australia, from different countries in the world, actually come to St. Albans Meadows and had a look at what Simon was doing with these children and what our other teachers were doing with IT.
That must be particularly satisfying.
It was an amazing thing, particularly as I said, I'm more of a sport, performing arts man. I'm not an IT person, and I'm too old for it. I was too old for it when I first came in, but you use the strengths of the people that you have at your school and their passions, and you guide them and you nurture them, and you make sure you're humble enough to let them do their thing.
On that note, another quote of yours I saw was that we have emerging leaders and we have emerging leaders, which is a fascinating way to frame leadership development. Can you give us a sense of the systems you've put in place to identify and to nurture talent across your team?
Absolutely. Have you got enough time?
Yeah. We're all ears.
Okay. Right. So basically at the school, I as a leader of longevity and being around a long time, the last thing you need to do is to come up short when somebody gets a promotion or leaves the school. You've got to have people coming through all the time. So I think it's smart leadership to make sure that if, one person moves on, there's another one to come up. And then while that's happening, there should be another one coming through. So my theory is that everybody in teaching is a leader. We all lead a grade, a classroom of maybe 25 children, 20, 25 children. So we're leading all the time. We just don't call it leadership, but it is leading, and we're developing and coming up with programs and things for children to make them better. So as a leader in a school, as a principal, I've got to do the same with my teachers to make sure that I identify those that are ready to take that next step. For example, if we're talking maths and English, okay, my assistant principal is curriculum coordinator. She's amazing. Underneath her, she has two teachers, one for maths, one for English. Underneath them, there's emerging leaders who might be teaching, say, 5, 6, 7 years, starting to come through. Then the emerging are the young teachers that we've got in our system that are learning from the emerging, and the emerging are learning from the ones in place, and the ones in place are learning from the assistant principal. So it's a pyramid almost. So it cascades down, and to do that, you do not come short. And you have your committees, you have your maths committees, you have your English committees, and you have your meetings with them. But you try not to burn people out. You've got to make sure that the balance is there, that their passions are such that it doesn't override other people's passions for other subjects too. So keeping balance and respect across all areas, I think, makes a big difference. We're in a great place at the moment. I can leave this organisation knowing that it's in really, really good hands. Hopefully it stays that way, but it's in really good hands. And the curriculum knowledge, Stephen, is unbelievable, from particularly our younger teachers who don't know anything else, only know our way anyhow. And that's another interesting thing, growing young people and making sure that you invest in them and you don't hold them back. You make sure you let them run a little bit, and you teach them how to do things nicely, not to get ahead of themselves, as I've probably mentioned that once or twice, but making sure that they are well equipped going forward.
To make sure I understand this, is that system of emerging leaders, does the training, for want of a better word, happen informally, and the structure itself is what raises our cognitive awareness of it? Or are there actually explicit activities that take place to give more formal processes and structures to this training?
Yeah, look, I would suggest it's a combination of both. It's a little bit organic, I think is what you're alluding to, but also it is very deliberate. Say, for example, with explicit curriculum now, particularly in literacy, we've been doing the Little Learners Love literacy here now 4 or 5 years. We were one of the first schools to embrace that. Now, every teacher is trained in that from prep to 6, every teacher. And then there are other teachers who, as I say, our younger teachers who don't know anything other than that. They're very, very well placed to go forward in this system of what's happening now. So that's very deliberate with them. The others, maybe they'll have a bias according to the curriculum that they've had for a long time, if you're talking whole language or something like that. But once again, if I go back to a Bob Hawkeism, we've got to have consensus at the end of the day. We've all got to, we may not be 100% on board with everything that's going on, but we've got to be able to work with it and agree to work with it and not be a blocker or somebody who's oppositional to fine. So basically, it's a respect thing too. It comes down to that in developing leaders. I've talked about humility. I've talked about respect. I've talked about availability. And I think one of the other things is being calm as well. There's lots of areas that we look at. You don't want a chaotic workplace. You don't want a chaotic classroom. You know, calmness, evenness, and people respecting what's going on. There's your culture.
Yeah.
That's how you bring your culture together.
I like that you used a hawkism there. If you look at his successor, some might say, to coin one of his phrases, you're the principal they had to have. In a nice way. Now, actually, you mentioned explicit teaching approaches before. I just want to come back to that briefly. That's a method, obviously, of teaching, but are you suggesting that actually is what sets up success for this pyramid structure that you've got as well, or are they two separate things altogether?
Well, it does help set it up, but I've always had a pyramid structure anyhow, whether it was whole language or explicit. I had to work with what was the system, what was in vogue to a certain extent, and I think over my 50 plus years of journey, I don't know how many curriculums I've been through and how many different gurus have been out there selling their products. But basically, I think what I'm saying about the explicit now, we find that it's very good at our school in a multicultural society. It works for us. Children with a background other than English, it works very, very nicely. Particularly if we front load them and you've got to do your incursions, excursions, your experiential stuff. You still have to, that's so important. And then tie it back in. So I think the pyramid's always been there. I've always been a man of structures and processes.
And look, you're retiring soon. I don't want to harp on that. I don't know. Are you tinged with sadness, or are you happy leaving satisfied?
Oh, look, it's a mixed emotion, Steve. It seriously is. I'll miss it terribly. I'll miss the people. I'll miss the children. I'll miss every aspect of it. But it's time. At 75 years of age, I think I've had a fair run. And I just hope that the next generation of leaders coming through get as much out of their career as I have, much enjoyment. Okay, there's highs, there's lows, and you get smashed every now and again, but you never let it knock you down, and you never. If I can give something to young principals coming through, okay, you are going to get belted somewhere along the line. You will put yourself on the line, and it won't work, and some people will disappoint you greatly. Don't let that define you. Whatever the disappointment is, don't stop being who you are for the next person who's going to come through, who might enjoy that and might take that on board. Do not let the negative people determine your leadership. That's their issue. That's not your issue. Your issue is the next one coming through and the next one coming through. They're going to be better and better and better.
And as a footnote, testament to this pyramid that you've got, I believe it's your assistant principal who's stepping into your shoes. Is that right?
I think she might do it for a little bit in an acting capacity while they go through the process.
In that case, then, this interview could be part of a prep for someone who wants to go for the job. Is it too late for someone to apply? And what would they be looking for? Any sense?
Oh, look, I think it closes in about a week's time. It's been up for a week,
Okay.
And then it will close. So I don't know whether the podcast will be out by then, but certainly if there isn't an appointment at the school, keep an eye out, because I know the department are very keen, particularly region, are very keen to get the right person in this school. It's a school they value, and they've articulated that, and they do not want this school to go backwards. They want it to keep thriving, as I do, as we all do at this place.
Last question. We look back over your career. At one point, you were having to corral horses that were eating the school lawns. You've built a beautiful gifted program there. What would you love your legacy to be at St. Albans Meadows?
Well, that's a very big question. My legacy would be that the school keeps going forward. Okay, that my legacy is the breadth of programs that we do offer, and the passion that we do have, and the culture of the school. I'll keep coming back to culture. The culture's amazing, and I think I would like that culture to remain. I would like our teachers to keep growing. When Steve goes, that's an opportunity for everybody to go up another level. It's not the end of something. It's an opportunity for somebody else to step up, and it opens up other pathways for other people. And I think if that's the case, then our school, our community will be fine. And everybody wants their legacy to be that you've left something that's really, really good and it hasn't fallen over. It'd break my heart if this place fell over. That'd be a disaster.
Stephen Crockford, thank you for joining me around the school table.
Thank you, Steve, and all the best to you too. Take care.